Let me get on Steve. Everyone stand by. And I'll give you a count. And here we go. And 3, 2, 1. Hang on. Sorry. 3, 2, 1, and.
Okay, give me another count, please. Something before the count of the number, like, and here we go, something like that.
And here we go. And 3, is that what you mean? Yeah. Or did you mean 3, 2, 1, and here we go?
4.
3, 2.
No, you give me something in front of the number.
Pre-1.
10. Maybe that'll be enough.
Pre-2.
And here we go. 3, 2, 1, and.
Perfect. What it used to be was mute is off. Well, was the phrase.
Well,
now it's and here we go. Oh, okay, great.
Okay, we've got a new.
Well, here we are in Zoom, and it's 2020, and all hell is breaking loose. Hi, I'm Steve Gilmore, and this is the Gilmore Gang. Joining us from around the globe, starting in the Pacific Northwest, is Michael Markman.
How do you do?
Glad to see you. Above him on my screen is Keith Tier in Palo Alto. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
In the eastern Northeast is Dennis Pombrian. I don't know what it is that you're doing when you're like washing a window. Is that, what is that signal?
I'm doing longer, a little bit longer. For
stretch it out.
She's doing wax on, wax off, I think. Right?
That's right.
Hi, Tina. Hi, Tina. Oh, hi, Steve. How are you?
Hi, nice to see you.
It's a real pleasure.
From the middle of the lower right of the country is Brent Leary.
Instead of here we go, could we say take it away, Steve?
Ooh, take it away, Steve Areno.
Steve Areno.
Or listen, and away we go.
Well, that would be the original Tonight Show.
Yeah, it was the Ed McMahon Prince mashup. Hello? Oh, and that guy in England that we just heard is Frank Raddatz. Welcome, Frank.
Nice to be seen. Oh, hey, guys.
Okay, so nothing to talk
nothing
about.
Nothing going on. Nah, yeah. Nothing.
Next.
Yeah.
That was a great
cloudy out here today, a little bit overcast.
Perfect weather down here.
Temperature's mild.
You mean there in the doctor's office?
Here in the outside the doctor's office. I can see the window. I'm looking through the window.
It's the kind of weather that makes the flu virus go away.
Not here in the UK. It's cold here. I mean, yeah. What can I tell you?
I got my flu shot this week.
Looks like there's an elephant.
Yeah, so
I got my flu. I got my flu shot this week, and I took a COVID test this morning. Yes, I did.
The audience.
Elephants in the room is,
the audience is leaving.
The president and the first lady and various members of the staff, Congress, and maybe the judiciary, all testing positive. Does anybody have any thing that they feel would be helpful to talk about as regarding this?
Oh, bleach.
No, I'm serious. Do we have anything that we can talk about that would tend to describe how we feel about this? I mean, I feel very frightened and concerned, but also excited about the fact that the election is nearing and doesn't seem to be being derailed by this situation, although of course that could happen at any minute. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I would first of all say to all of those people that have tested positive, go with God. This is a horrible thing, and it's scary. But beyond that, I'm interested in talking about, or this is what I've been interested in all day, is what are the things that will be immediately impacted in terms of President Trump's calendar going forward. Clearly, if he quarantines for 14 days or a bit longer, there will be some kind of impact on the next debate. There may be an impact on the vice presidential debate, although Pence tested negative from what I heard today. There seems that look, one thing's for sure: the conversation about his taxes, the conversation about the debate itself that just happened, those two conversations have stopped. And I can tell you that, at least on my Facebook feed and on my Twitter feed, a lot of the conversation is that seems a little bit like something that the administration or Trump himself would want to have happen. I'm not suggesting that he's tested positive to attain those goals, but it's what people are talking about. So those are the things that are on my mind.
What I see on my social media feed is a large number of people who don't believe the news. His credibility and the credibility of the administration are so far below any measurable amount. People just aren't sure whether to take it at face value or not.
It's the boy who cried wolf, is what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think it's real, but I'm just shocked at how many people doubt it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's real. And it's interesting, sad that so many other people almost all at the same time are being reported to also be positive. I mean, I think one of the really interesting things to me is apparently Hope Hicks showed on Thursday symptoms and was quarantined on Air Force One on its way back from a rally. Now, Air Force One, if you talk about a closed environment, Dr. Gupta said today on MSNBC, any closed environment is dangerous. Anywhere inside is dangerous. That makes me wonder about, although Biden, I believe, also tested negative today. If anybody can.
Yes, he tweeted out that he and Jill both tested negative, but he's not out of the incubation period, so he'll have to be tested again in the next few days. But the first
Gupta
test, thankfully, was negative.
And he was talking about the fact that room itself was also a petri dish, and they kept cutting away to the audience, to the group of family members, none of whom were wearing masks. I just it's just a startling thing, especially that 1 o'clock this morning, right after he had made a piece of videotape that appeared at the Al Smith dinner, I think it was, basically saying that we've turned the corner. It just very odd.
One other thing, Frank, that you allude to is that on an airplane, they recirculate the air. And so it's even more of a petri dish than simply being in an auditorium.
Yeah.
The good news here is that the rate of death from infections, unless you have serious underlying conditions, seems to be dramatically falling.
Yeah.
And therefore, and the symptoms reported are mild. So I'm at least going to work on the assumption that this is similar to another experience I had recently, which is one of the Manchester United soccer players tested positive about 3 weeks ago. He quarantined for 2 weeks. He's now played 3 games and he's fine. That in short, this is not actually as scary given the specific circumstances of the health regime.
I mean, even given the factors of Trump's age and weight, the actual case mortality rate is is low. It's probably around 10%. And he's probably on the low end of that, given the quality of care we can assume he's getting.
So, yeah, so I think from the election point of view, he must be kicking himself, because I think coming out of the debate, he was confident. Whether we all agree that he should be or not is another matter, but he was confident. And he was probably looking forward to the next 2 weeks, which are now going to be mainly, he can still leverage it. He's tweeting today. He can still leverage it. He can get a fair amount of sympathy for the fact that he's sick, whilst also continuing to try to form the narrative through tweeting, which I suspect he will do. And when we get to the next debate, which remind me, is that after 2 weeks from now?
It's 2 weeks.
Right. He'll probably be able to show up to that, all being well. And I guess we all hope he does.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's happened is that the commission has determined that it's going to change the rules.
Muted, Steve.
So can't hear you, Steve.
Trying to speak, I think.
Sorry, I just muted myself by accident. Go ahead.
I was going to say that the commission has determined, based on what happened at the first debate, that it was going to change the rules, although we haven't heard what those changes are. I had posted a somewhat in jest a photograph from an old 1950s game show that showed two people in enclosed boxes with mic cutoff switches and the host of the show in the foreground. I don't think it was the $64,000 question. I think that was one booth, but there was another game that was two booths. Anyway, someone on my feed said that they had heard of and there's a lot of people on my feed that are either journalists or people who are in Washington, that was a direction that they were heading in. One wonders if they might not head into the direction of doing it on Zoom.
If they do on Zoom, I don't know. Then they've got built-in isolation booths.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
The history of the isolation booth is in 1955, the $64,000 question introduced the concept. And in 1956, Barry and Enright came up with a format they called 21, which was two contestants pitted against each other. So they introduced the twin isolation booths on 21. And then the $64,000 franchise introduced the $64,000 challenge, which was two contestants. And so they had two booths on that format.
Yeah, and they also
but it's got a lot to do with whether or not the two combatants, if you will, agree, if that their groups agree to any of these changes. And from what I heard, they certainly didn't agree to a mic cutoff on the last one. I'm not sure why they would this time.
I don't think they will. And the point is, the reason this is such a bizarrely ironic discussion is that Trump didn't follow the rules of the first debate. So if you change the rules, he's certainly not going to follow the new rules.
Dennis, you've been trying to get
brand is to be the guy who upends the rules. I mean, that's his appeal to the people he appeals to. He's the guy who just doesn't allow any constraints on him.
Couple of things. I just looked it up. Boris Johnson is a much younger man than Donald Trump. He became obviously ill on March 27th, and it was not until April 27th that he went back to work. That's a month. We've got 32 days left in this election cycle. You got to count that. And also, Keith, I think the only reason morbidity is going down is because a younger population of people is getting sick. And we've seen that younger people process the virus and process the disease better. I don't know what the statistics are if you take just people between, say, 70 and 80, or people between 60 and 70. But I assume that they couldn't play soccer matches before they got sick, and they weren't playing afterwards either.
I tried to look for that this morning, and it varies by country. So it does seem to vary by care. at least 10% in that age range, and sometimes goes up to 15 or 20%.
Now, I would agree with whoever said it, that the standard of care that Donald Trump is going to have is going to be phenomenal. He's going to be getting dexamethasone. He's going to be getting monoclonal antibody. He's going to be getting remdesivir, and they'll probably try him on a course of convalescent plasma. So that could
no bleach.
No bleach.
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing about the statistics,
not bleach for the gander.
the interesting thing about the statistics, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe Keith, you can address this, is that it seems to me that the morbidity rate has gone down, but the people catching the virus has gone up.
Well, that we don't know, because there's now so much testing. It could have been the case that the infection rate was high before, therefore the morbidity.
We didn't know it.
We didn't know. So sadly, no one can be a good statistician here, because the rules are out the window, because there is no real reliable data. That said, he is tweeting today, and his symptoms are apparently mild. So from the point of view of everything, I think let's just hope that stays true, and we can discuss the election almost as if this is a sideshow. Were this to become the main event, that wouldn't be good, right?
Well, but the point was made, though, that, you know, Boris Johnson contracted the virus, and it wasn't for a few days before he actually had really bad symptoms, and then it wasn't until a few days later that he was hospitalized, and he spent, I believe, 3 days in the hospital in intensive care.
He was on.
That's when he
had to be put on.
Yeah. So, and that's where he said that, you know, the NHS had saved his life and all of that. So that was a pretty elongated stretch between the time that he announced he had it and the time. And then, of course, there was Bolsonaro, who had really mild symptoms, and, you know, almost immediately 3 days later just took his mask off.
Same with.
I don't think this is a sideshow. Is this the single greatest vulnerability that Trump has is his handling of the virus, and he has. I think Frank mentioned this. He even last night in the tape he made for the Al Smith dinner said we turned the corner. He's been trying to change the subject and turn the corner ever since February, and this makes that absolutely impossible. He can't have turned the corner.
Michael, I would say the opposite. If it turns out that his symptoms are mild, which they may be, and it's very specific, we don't know, right? To be honest. But let's say his symptoms are mild, he's going to say, look, this thing isn't scary.
Well, it's going to be a hard take with upwards of 220,000 dead by then.
Yeah, but
it's. I mean, that is what he'll do, and I've seen a lot of people on social media saying that was their worst case scenario, that he'd come back and say, "See, I was right."
I think he'll say, Ian,
but it's really hard to make that claim when you have so much economic and economic disruption and death.
He's going to focus on the. It's interesting. I watched Fox News after the debate just so I could kind of tune into the alternate reality and see what was going on there. They really focus on the 6.8 million not dead, and,
right.
And they also focus on the greater dead that would have been the case had Trump, you know, not done what he did, whatever that is. So there is this alternate universe that we're not in.
Right. Well, and Trump tried to make that point during the debate. If Biden had been charged, we'd have 2 million dead.
May I give you some data? I just looked this up with the CDC. This is kind of scary. If you use as the benchmark, the comparison group, 18 to 29-year-olds, and you go up every decade, 10 years, a 30 to 39-year-old group has a 4x higher death rate. When you get to the group 65 to 74 years old, it's 90 times higher. This is not something to be toyed with or overgeneralized about. Trump is in a difficult age group. He's got comorbidities. This is by the numbers. This is a little bit scary.
Well, yes, but when you compare it to a very low base, 90 times higher sounds very large. If you compare it to the infection rate, it's still going to be a small fraction. It's going to be 10% or 12% at his age. So it's always compared to what?
We can't speculate. I mean, almost any scenario is possible at this point. Almost any scenario.
What do you mean we can't speculate? You've been speculating for the last 10 minutes.
No, I've been saying it's very specific to every individual, and it's early, so we don't know specifically. And then we speculated what he would do given any particular scenario, but we're not trying to guess what's going to happen to him because we don't know.
We can certainly.
No, we can't forget that the First Lady and Hope Hicks both in the White House tested positive. That begs the question about that. And I think Dennis, you probably can talk about this. That Abbott quick test has shown somewhere between 30 and 50% false positives. Doesn't seem.
I don't have data on that. I haven't seen the data. I know generally what you're saying is true. You lose specificity with the rapid test compared to the PCR test, the whatever. I'm losing it right now.
PCR. Brent, let me ask you a quick question. You still hold to your concern / prediction that Trump's going to win the election?
It's a wild card, man. Nobody.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said it's a wild card. This whole thing is, who knows what to make out of this? Quite honestly, I mean,
the wild card remains what it's always been. It's been voter suppression, voter challenges, and trying to keep people from voting. If you look at what's happening in Pennsylvania now, the Republicans in the legislature are trying to put up lots of roadblocks. In Texas, Abbott said, take out all the ballot drop boxes, just have one per county. And those are very large counties in Texas in terms of geography. So the GOP game is still not to have a free and fair election.
So you're moving toward Brent's position that Trump's going to win?
No, I am not moving there. I'm just saying that's the issue. I think and I've said this consistently, the polling has been very consistent. Biden is ahead of where most candidates have been at this point. Most winning candidates have been at this point. And the polls are very consistent week to week. It's not fluctuating. If you look at the charts from the 2016 election, it's very erratic. Clinton goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. Biden has been very steady. So I think the polling is not in question. It's the counting that's in question.
Right.
Could I just throw something out?
If you added, hang on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the thing, I don't know, the thing about this whole 12, 14 hours that kind of troubles me. I mean, away from the fact that people are getting the virus, and particularly, the folks that just got it and how important they are to the country. The press conference that Mark Meadows just held, that to me was concerning, because this dude, after all that we've heard about this last 12 hours and the people who have gotten it, and I mean, it's 24/7 coverage. This guy who is the chief of staff for the president of the United States, he comes out, no mask. Everybody else is wearing a mask all around him. And he comes out without a mask. And he's the one that just talked to the president. And he's talking for the president. And everybody else in the picture has a mask on but him. What does that say?
Yeah, that was a pretty stark image. I saw that too. And I was like, wait a minute. My wife and I both sort of jumped up and made that same comment, Brent. It just seems wrong, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And not only his appearance, but what information did he give us? We heard Dennis speculating on the therapeutics that Trump will be receiving, but we haven't heard an announcement from the White House about what therapeutics he's being receiving. Back when Eisenhower had ileitis, he had his communication shop report every bowel movement he made. I mean, he was completely open as to the state of his recovery.
Yeah, but there's been a long history of secrecy regarding presidential health that didn't start with Trump and won't end with him.
It's true.
I don't know about that.
But it has been. I think Trump has been the most concealing, the least transparent of any president that I can remember.
What about Kennedy?
I think the thing you need to balance that with is the state of the art of medicine. So somebody like Woodrow Wilson 100 years ago, there wasn't a great deal of medical capability in stroke cases, and they weren't very transparent about it. But you fast forward to say the 1960s, when we've got antibiotics, we've got good anesthesia, we're doing things. Lyndon Johnson had a gallbladder operation. Nobody talked about that, but he actually pulled up his shirt and showed his scar to Life magazine.
Well, but the least
Kennedy's back problem was
not his back problem, his Addison's disease.
Had
a potentially fatal disease. In his what is it? The adrenal glands not being able to produce proper hormones, and he had to take constant shots. It was not too long before Kennedy had that disease was 100% fatal. They began to develop remedies that were hormone replacements, but he completely concealed that.
Tell you a quick story about that. The early therapies were a cocktail of adrenocorticosteroids derived from, I think, pig or cow adrenal glands, and they included a lot of things like testosterone. And they were injecting Kennedy with all of these hormones, when all he really needed was the basic cholesterol backbone molecule. And I'm not a doctor, I can't pinpoint anything, but when you take a lot of testosterone, you get a little randy.
Uh-huh.
That explains it.
I don't know if it does, but
all right. So let me not shift gears, but change the subject to the 25th Amendment. Let's say that Trump gets into a period of more than mild symptoms. Is the 25th Amendment going to play out here in that scenario, or can anybody explain what the 25th Amendment actually is?
Yes, it will play out. It depends on what section of the law of the amendment you use.
Well, what would be applicable to this situation is what I'm asking.
Well, there are two possibilities. One is that the president himself can sign a letter saying that until I'm better, this guy is now president. If Trump won't or can't do that, then the cabinet will to do that by majority. Those are the two provisions.
That's right. Section 3, Section 4.
The chance of Trump signing anything that suggests that he made a mistake about the course of his approach to the virus is pretty much zero, correct?
I would say so. Yes. I mean, the chance of Trump doing anything to admit any kind of error or any kind of retreat is pretty close to zero.
Okay. So
that says that you would have. But you can say that about him announcing that he had the virus in the first place, too, can't you? I suppose.
Plus, I'm not convinced.
He was trying to beat the media from telling it. He always likes to get it out before the meeting. You know, like when somebody gives them a letter of resignation and he says, I fired him, because he doesn't want to look like somebody got one over on him. And I think they knew this was about to come out and he wanted to get ahead of it.
That's
And
rule
he
one
must have,
PR.
he must have known this when he, way before 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well,
I mean,
he
I just
probably-
can't. Go ahead.
Yes, when Mark Meadows came out, he says, I'm not going to get into the TikTok.
He probably
Yeah, I guess-
tested at like 8 o'clock, and then it came back positive, and they said, well, we got to do another test, the one that takes like a couple hours in the easy bake oven, and that came back positive too. And at that point, they had no choice but to,
And he did bring TikTok into the conversation.
That's
Okay.
true. By refusing to bring it in.
Keith,
By
you were gonna
refusing.
say something?
But not that TikTok, right?
No.
Keith, you were going to say something?
I think my microphone's fucked.
No, it's fine. I can hear you.
Oh, we just heard you.
Sorry for the
Yeah,
sorry for the
that's all right. Hey, look, Dana Bash said shit on television the other day, got away with it, and everybody was talking about it. Interesting.
All right. So
gonna
can
say
you hear me, Keith?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I was going to say that thinking about the relationship between him catching the virus and the question of whether he's had the right approach to the virus, I think firstly he won't associate the two. He'll say catching the virus is always a danger, and that his approach was not governed by the likelihood of catching. His approach was governed by how serious it is if you catch it and the economy. So I suspect even if it was really bad for him, it wouldn't lead him to, change his narrative. And there is a logical narrative. It's not one I agree with, but there's a logical narrative that says the risk of catching this and dying is so low, and the cost of guarding against that is so high, that the smart thing to do is to allow people to catch it. That's not a crazy narrative. I don't agree with it, but it's there are countries in the world that take that view.
Yeah.
and a lot of people are dying.
Yeah, exactly. So I think net, he's running against another candidate who has some pretty good data that's not a good idea. So I don't think that impacts on whether or not he's going to take the approach of effectively apologizing for his behavior.
He'll never do
But
that.
my question was more about if he's not going to make a change in that area. What is the 25th Amendment and what are the mechanics of it regarding the cabinet? Does anybody want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to add a coda, in my humble opinion, Trump has lost control of the narrative. The White House usually runs the news cycle, runs the narrative. I think this is out of his hands at this point. It probably has been out of his hands for a little while. As far as the 25th Amendment goes, in Section 4 is the one we should probably zoom in on. It's the one where a majority of the cabinet votes to declare the president incapacitated and makes the sitting vice president the temporary president. Now, the issue we have is that, what's his name? Chad Wolf is an acting secretary. So does a secretary who has not been confirmed by the Senate have the ability to vote in that particular case?
How many members of the cabinet are acting at this point? And is that not possible to tilt the scale a bit?
Well, yeah, it's more than one, and I don't know the answer. Nobody's ever done this before. So
I don't think.
But I wonder how likely it is that there's going to be divided opinion about whether to do it. I mean, if Trump really progresses to the point where he's incapacitated, will they be arguing about it, or will it be pretty close to the unanimous, whether they're confirmed or not?
Well, if he is completely incapacitated, he's certainly not in a position to hand off the reins of power. Incapacitation, isn't it an automatic thing that the vice president would then take over?
No, it's
It
not.
seems to me that the 25th then kicks in to talk about beyond the vice president.
No,
Actually, no.
the vice president doesn't automatically get it. He either has to be handed it by the president or by the cabinet.
That's right. It's only in the case of the death of a president that the vice president automatically assumes the office.
Yeah, and the difference there is that the vice president becomes the president. In this case, the vice president becomes the acting president. You know, it's
Yeah.
if you're in a
Well,
corporate
but I mean,
situation, when a manager goes on leave, they frequently will give a signature authority to someone else in their department, and that says,
consider
well,
that-
while I'm gone, you can sign anything that comes up.
So
That's what-
consider what happens if he's in critical care, intubated, unable to, goes into a forced coma, can't do anything. Wouldn't that be a situation where would the cabinet have to say at that point, okay,
You would
hand
think
the
so.
reins
I
off?
mean, you would think so, but it's not automatic.
Hmm.
I think if he gets that point, they will. But there is the
Yeah.
mechanism that you have to go
All right,
through.
snap poll here. Give me a percent.
Deliver a letter to the Congress saying that we have temporarily transferred the powers of the presidency
Okay,
to the vice president. And
Let's-
then to get it back, all Trump has to do is wake up and say, "I'm ready now," and he gets it back.
okay, I'm going to poll, please. I'd like to hear from everybody what they think is the percentage possibility of this being going into effect at all. I'll say 10%. Anybody else?
I think it's about 80 or 90%.
Yeah,
Really?
I'd say 50.
Keith?
0.
Brent?
Yeah, I'm between 0 and 10.
Okay, excellent. And Michael?
I'll give it 5%. I think it's unlikely.
Okay. So given the possibility, excuse me 1 second. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank
Yes.
My son.
Gesundheit.
Given the possibility that this will not get that far, hopefully that the president will recover from mild or not particularly life-threatening symptoms. What effects is it going to have on the next 34 days?
He's out of the picture for the next month, regardless of the severity.
Well, unless he does what Biden's been doing, which has been, putting himself in the basement and doing Zooms. I mean, I don't know that he's out of the picture. He's certainly out of the picture in terms of these giant rallies that he was handling. There's certainly not going to be any, although he doesn't really do sort of individual face-to-face things like Biden did prior to the virus. So I don't think he's out of the picture. But I think that
Frank, he's not healthy.
Yeah.
Biden was in his basement healthy and was able to appear healthy.
But we don't know that
New York
he's
Times
not.
this morning said that Trump, when he went to Bedminster, looked fatigued and was coughing. So I don't know if he'll even want to be on camera. We don't know what his condition is.
He'll
We
want to
don't-
be on camera.
We don't know what his appearance will be.
So the right answer is it depends on the gravity of the symptoms.
Yeah.
On the very, very mild side, I think Frank will end up being right. And on the very, very serious side, Dennis will end up being right. And it could be anywhere in between.
Well, of course,
Look, I think the damage in terms of, to me, in terms of the immediate conversation has been done. The fact that there has been an announcement that he has tested positive and that others in the White House have also tested positive have moved the conversation. The narrative is off the track that the White House or the campaign would certainly want it to be on. So the damage is done. That's I think.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think
Yep.
we all agree with that. So the question then, from my perspective, is I'll give you an analysis of the impact of the debate. Regardless of whether you think that Biden won or lost, or vice versa, it extended by a week the relative balance of polling that shows Biden with a substantial lead. Is that going to have the same effect with this illness?
I'd say that all other things being equal, him being ill is a marginal plus for him. But it's marginal, so it won't be enough to change the dynamic.
Well, I'm talking about the polls.
Yeah, the polls. I'm saying the polls will reflect a slight uptick for him due to his illness, I suspect.
So you think I don't agree with that. I mean, early this morning when I first heard about it, my sense was that there's going to be a sympathy factor here that will affect the polls in a positive way. As the day has gone on, my sense of that has diminished. It just feels to me like when we see the polls tomorrow or the next day or whenever the next couple of polls come out, I think it's going to be worse for him because of the cry wolf syndrome.
I agree. I agree with that. I think marginally this is going to boost Biden and diminish Trump.
Well, it's like a tie goes
Let's
to.
remember, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of reminders of this. Today is the 4-year anniversary of Trump mocking Hillary Clinton for having pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I think that's a little bit of inside baseball compared to.
he just
Go ahead, Brent.
No, he just mocked Biden at the last debate for wearing a mask. He was saying he's always wearing a mask. He's even inside. He's wearing this big old. I mean, he mocked that, and to me, that's
not
that's
just
more troublesome than than going back 4 years, because that's during the pandemic when 200,000 people had already been died from it, and he's here mocking somebody for wearing it, and then a couple of days later, look what happened.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys,
the question to me is, will the Lincoln Project actually do anything with this and use that soundbite from the? I don't
don't
think so.
They have a new ad that just went up before we went on the air, and I haven't watched it yet. But
Hey,
there
guys.
If
is
they're
a new
smart,
ad
which
that
I
has
believe they are,
for it.
if the Lincoln Project is smart, they're not going to try and capitalize on this.
Not right now.
Not now. It's
Not
just
at all.
too soon.
I'm on 538 right now, and I've got a graph in front of me that says, do Americans approve of Trump's response to the coronavirus crisis, October 1st? 56.5% disapprove, 40.4% approve. That's roughly his base.
Yeah.
And as far as the Lincoln Project is concerned, let me throw this out. I've been thinking that the closer you get to the election, the more positive the Lincoln Project has to become. And I would expect them to start making ads about Joe Biden and about his fitness for office, not about Trump anymore, because they've made their case about Trump.
Yeah, I think the truth is dehumanizing a narrative never really works out well for a person. So,
And that's what Trump's been doing. So it's not working out well for him.
correct.
Well, one of the people who's watching the watch party in California is making the point that the news organizations are doing the work for them. So they're the ones who are running that clip from the debate over and over and over again. So if you think about that, then maybe there's just no reason for the Lincoln Project to do anything other than take the high road and start saying something more positive about Biden.
That's kind of interesting to me. What you're suggesting, or at least what I'm hearing, is that there's I mean, Frank, you know the nomenclature for all of this. I'm sure others do too. But there's paid media, which is what you buy an ad, and then there's what's the one?
Earned media is earned media and owned media, and that's earned media.
Okay,
When
and then
the
to me,
press just goes out and doesn't.
So I think there's an emergent third kind of media, which is what we're doing right now, and what I think a lot of people are doing, which is they're just basically taking the sort of podcast blog approach, which is they're just going direct to influencers and to, a core audience, which has the potential for fan out to actually have an impact on the margins where the election will be decided.
Well, in a way, that's Trump's point, isn't it? If you look at it from Trump's point of view, he's making the case that the media is just another campaign organization for Biden, and that he's been treated, in quotes, unfairly. And I must say, as someone who wants to see Trump out, I can't watch MSNBC easily anymore. I made this point before on the show, because it's so repetitive that it's boring. I literally find it boring. I'm not prepared to listen to Trump's a dick 24/7, because I kind of know that already, and I'm kind of thirsting for something a bit deeper. Now, when I switched to Fox News the other night, it was almost like a relief, because they were in this parallel universe where Trump's the good guy and Biden's the bad guy. Now, I couldn't stand that for more than 10 minutes either, but it's like the entire media has become cheerleaders for a view.
Well,
there's absolutely no serious narrative at all.
Yeah, but
I don't agree with that. I think that, starting with Anderson Cooper on CNN after the announcement was made at 1:00 this morning, and I actually went to CNN. Usually my go-to is MSNBC, but my wife is starting to feel exactly how you feel, Keith, and so it was easy for me to switch over to CNN. I thought CNN did a really good job of trying to go in what they've said they're trying to do all along, which is to go down the middle, and I think that they did that. As starting with Anderson Cooper, who came into the office. I think he was in by, I want to say I picked up around 3 a.m. Eastern time. And it just felt to me more refreshing to watch CNN's coverage of that than anything else that I had seen. And especially after
I switched to CNN as well, and I was happy to do so.
Okay, so
by the way, who predicted that the Lincoln Project would go positive on Biden? You win, Dennis. I just looked at it with the sound off, and it is an ad called Heartland, and it's just there is no Trump in it. It's all Biden and some other presidents.
Here we go.
Yeah.
There's a really good point.
Hang on. We've got a time problem here with Brent. You have to go to your other show, right?
Yep.
Okay, so can you just summarize for our benefit where you're feeling right now?
Oh man, it's hard to say in a few words, because
I'm not looking for a horse race. I just want to know how you're feeling.
I'm just going to say right now, nothing has changed for me. Check back with me next week.
Okay.
Literally, check back with me next week.
All right. Well, when you take off, we appreciate you being here, and we'll appreciate you being here next week as well.
You could almost have a daily Gilmore Gang for the next week, actually.
It's going to be fun.
Brent.
Every week is a new adventure, so we'll see what happens next week. See you guys.
Take care.
See ya. So one of the viewers on the.
Before I interrupted you.
One of the viewers on the watch made a point that I think is pretty obvious, and that is that not a single one of the Trump space is going to be moved by any of this conversation or anything. But what it might do is to galvanize the people who are already decided that they're going to vote for Biden to get out and actually vote, or or even affect some of the undecided. I saw a lot of interesting man on the street interviews today, which tend to You can cut a man on the street interview to go in either direction, anytime, any way that you want. It's real easy to do. But I felt by switching around, watching a lot of different man on the street interviews, quite honestly, I didn't feel like anything had changed. The people that felt to me like they were going to be Trump supporters continued to support him regardless. The people that were not Trump supporters continued to not support him, and that what was going on now wasn't going to make any difference.
But that's in itself, that's a very strong Biden signal.
It is, and you know, there's a core that is locked into Trump no matter what. There's something at the margin that may have some flexibility, and then there's the question of motivation. Politics is not so much about persuasion as it is getting people to the polls.
And in line with that, I'm wondering if this news accelerates some early voting. In other words, people may have been on the fence, but between the debate and this news, some people may be just pushed over the line and throw up their hands and say, "Well, screw it, I'm going to vote this way. My choice is made for me by the events."
Well, that's the point that this viewer was making. I think that it'll galvanize those people to get out and do something immediately. And I get a sense that may actually be the case.
Well, no, but listen, think about the response we, the Gilmore Gang, have had. Steve, at the outset, had the tone of a concerned citizen to a certain extent, which was echoed by quite a few of you.
The outset of what? Of the show?
The show. And in other words, galvanizing doesn't seem the right word to describe the emotional impact of this on people. If anything, it's the opposite. It's kind of, oh shit, combined with, obviously it doesn't change what they think, but there isn't a galvanizing impetus that I can sense.
Oh yeah, but you might not see that for 24 to 48 hours.
I can only report on myself. This has been an emotionally jangling week for me. I got barely any sleep at all after the debate, and I got barely any sleep at all last night. It's just been unnerving, and I want to make it stop. I want to do what I can to make, to change the channel. I really want to change the channel. I hate this show. Yeah. Not
this show. Thanks.
Gilmore Gang show.
Yeah, no, we like the Gilmore Gang, Steve. Don't worry about that. We love it. We love the Gilmore Gang. Somebody on the watch party also said, "Oh, hey, it's my favorite group of old farts again."
Well, as long as we're favorites.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Can't do anything about being an old fart, but I can't. I'm glad we're favorites.
Well, you don't fart at all until you're old, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that.
High quality insight that we are all.
Well, this conversation just went.
It did just now. Last week, I think.
For those of us who were raised in the British tradition of humor, there is no bottom.
I'm not sure what that means.
It could mean many things, but there you go.
How low will you go?
Exactly.
Look, in the end, a lot of this all is it depends on what happens with the Electoral College anyway.
Say again.
Well, I saw an incredible thing last night, Frank, about the Electoral College, which said that it imagined a scenario where the contested votes are in states that are crossover states, or what I mean by that, states that are in play, and that there's no clear winner short of a legal process in some of those states. And it made the point, and I didn't realize this, the Electoral College is not a federally rule-based thing. It's a state thing, rule-based thing. And the Constitution at the state level, whenever there's no clear winner, the states will have different rules about how to decide who to send to the Electoral College to vote. And the ultimate decision is in the hands of the state legislature. And it's
Isn't it?
if it's a Republican state with a possible Democratic win but no clear winner, the Republican incumbent can choose to send all Republicans to the electoral college under the current rules.
Well,
And
that
how
was
are they
Martin
gonna
Gelman
meet?
article last week in the Atlantic. He spelled out a lot of that scenario, and it is a possibility. The question is, what do we mean by an inconclusive result? Because that's what the Republicans have been trying to do. If you can stop the count and prevent a conclusive result, and then you get to certify your own slate of electors.
Right.
But the question is really, it's more complicated than that, because the state legislature has to follow their own state laws about how to certify a slate of electors. They can't ad hoc change the rules without legislating a change of rules. And in most of the swing states, there happens to be a Democratic governor. Now, he might veto the change of rules. At the end of the day, both competing slates of electors show up at Congress, and Congress gets to decide which slate of electors to count. Now, a lot of that will depend on who the new Congress is, because that takes place next year on January 6th, when the new Congress comes into play.
What I read. By the way, it's only a footnote, but the other thing I'd never done the quantification of the percent of the population the Senate represents, and it turns out that the Republican senators represent 15 million less Americans than the Democratic senators who are the minority, due to the way the Senate works. And I knew the Senate was 2 per state, but I'd never done the math on what that meant in terms of the number of Americans represented in the Senate by the political parties.
Yes.
The Senate
There's an article in the Times, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't that why California wants to become wants to secede from the Republic?
That's happening.
Of course not. But you know what's interesting is I don't know the numbers on this, but I know there was a conversation not too long ago about how many states are already in agreement to eliminate the Electoral College, and it takes a certain number of states for that to happen. I don't know what those numbers are, nor do I know what that number is that would get us over that line.
Well, there are two things. One is you can have an amendment to eliminate the Electoral College, but I think what you're talking about is a compact among the states, where states agree that if they control 270 votes, then they can determine the winner. So the compact is, we will vote for the winner of the popular vote, regardless of what our state votes for.
Yeah.
And 196 electoral college seats have already made that decision. Well, short of 270 needed.
Yeah, that's the number I was thinking.
All right, so Dennis,
that's the easy part. Getting to 270 is going to be the hard part.
Yeah, Dennis, what do you think the likelihood at all of there being significant electoral college reform in this election cycle?
0.
I would say 0, right?
No, right.
Yeah, 0.
You can't change the rules in the middle of the game. The new Congress.
Even if you could, would they? I don't think so.
They can't.
I don't think so
It's a moot point.
There's no way to do that. There's no way to do that this year.
They're not talking about changing the rules. They're talking about leveraging the rules, because the rules allow the states to determine.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is what actually is going to happen. And I don't think any of that is going to actually happen.
They're not even going to be able to, they won't even be able to leverage the, and I see your point, Keith, but I agree, Steve. It's 0.
But the situation, though, has put us in a place where the only way Biden can definitely win is by a blowout, because as long as it's contestable, it will be contestable. So you would think that 270 votes would be enough to win. Now there has to be a huge margin in all of the states, including the battleground states, the purple states. They've kind of moved the goalposts and raised the bar for
Yeah,
how you
but
become
that's
president.
expectation setting, and that's a lot of spin, basically, in the end game here. What I think the impact of what's happened with the president and the first lady, et cetera, is that it's going to make it increasingly unlikely that the Republicans are going to get away with trying to re-engineer or backwards engineer the election, which is kind of what we've been talking about for the last couple minutes. I think that the fact that the Democrats have been saying for months that this maskless kind of arrogance is fatal, or at least dangerous, has been borne out by the circumstances right now. And to, I think, somebody's point, this is going to, for the next 30 days, that's not going to change. So I think that this has effectively frozen the election.
Does this effectively freeze the Supreme Court nomination?
I think that's, I don't think people care. I mean, I think that, at the legislative level, at the partisan level, obviously they care, but relative to whether we can stay alive, or at what point does the clock stop spinning against rational solutions to the virus, that's the number one thing people care about, period.
Well, but I'm thinking, kind of off of what Michael was just talking about. If it ends up being tight, or what Keith was saying, I'm sorry, if it ends up being tight, if it isn't a blowout, if it isn't obvious, and it ends up being tight, then it will get litigated, and then it is, I believe, the desire of the campaign to have this litigation go as high up as the Supreme Court. And if he's packed the Supreme Court with conservatives, they make a decision that is pro-conservative. So yes, I understand that.
I hear you, but what I'm saying is that I'm basically agreeing with what Biden said at the debate, which is at the end of the day, he's not going to win. And if he does win, then he's the president. And if he doesn't win, then he's going to be leaving the White House. And
or taken out.
Whatever. Yeah,
he will be gone.
Yeah.
I actually think Biden's point in the debate about the Supreme Court was his only weak moment. And it could be just me because I'm a Brit, but when he said, look, the people and the Senate decide the Supreme Court, and so let's wait till the election and let the people decide. When Trump comes back and says, well, the people already decided, I'm the president, and they already elected the Senate, and it's in place, he kind of wins that argument for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Democrats, trying to overturn the inexorable logic of not having enough votes is just pathetic, and nobody's really listening when they say that. So again, it comes down to, are they going to win this election or not?
Yep.
We'll see, won't we?
I think
Really?
win, and they're going to win handily.
Yeah, but here we go to the last slide. I think that your points, all of your points about the margin, I think that's basically a spin put out. I think that I'll just everybody vote. Is 3% a Biden 3% victory in the key swing states? Is that enough to make it legitimate? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, so Tina says no. Dennis?
I think possibly. It really depends on the state.
Okay, well, those key states.
Well, no, I mean they're not all equal. I think 3% in Arizona might be fine. I think 3% in Wisconsin won't be. Wisconsin is known for its mischief.
So 3% means you're talking 52-49.
Yeah, I'm just saying that right now the spread allegedly is 6 to 7 to 8 to double digits, of a Biden lead. And the consensus is that that's going to shrink. And I'm saying, where's the line?
Between landslide and.
But
But
yeah,
you know what? I think
is a non-starter. I don't think that's ever going to happen in this.
In elections, traditionally, a 3% win is considered a solid win.
yes, I was just going to say that 3% is enough. But whether it's enough to actually sway the minds and hearts of the electorate and the administration and the campaign, that's the question.
Yeah, but that's why Biden's comment, I thought, was significant, which was basically, at the end of the day, people are going to vote, then they're going to count the vote. It may take a week, a month, 2 months, whatever. And then and what I'm asking is, if he wins by 3% in the key swing states that give him the electoral college, does he win?
Yes, he does.
I think the answer is yes.
And
Yes.
Steve, do you mean in a single state he wins by 3%, and he does that in multiple states, or do you mean across?
In the key multiple states that he needs to get to 270 in the electoral college.
3%.
That's the whole ball game. It doesn't matter what the.
Yeah. He wins.
I think so too.
Yeah, the other thing you got to look at is coattails, the coattail effect. I would imagine that if Biden pulls out a win in a swing state by 3 points, he's going to be dragging along maybe a senator, maybe a majority of the House of Representative delegates, and therefore you're gonna look at this and say, yeah, it was a pretty reasonable win on his part. Look, the people of the state went blue. I don't think you're going to find a situation where they reelect a Republican senator and elect Biden in very many cases.
Okay, last thoughts. Going around the table, starting with Frank.
I'm ready for this to be over. That's my last thought.
But you got at least 32 days, or as some people call it, 45 days.
Some people call it a lifetime. I'm still ready for it to be over.
How's your watch party? What do they think?
Well, it's interesting. Most of the people in the watch party on my feed have just been. It's interesting. They haven't taken a position in that regard. They've all had something to say about our conversation, which makes the conversation on the watch party very interesting. So no, there's been no consensus on the watch party. Just people talking about what they think the effects of the president's situation currently is, and how they look at how the vote might be affected by that situation. That's really all that's been going on. But I find that to be an interesting level of engagement. So I'm really upbeat about the fact that the watch party has mine. I think, Keith, I don't know if you did one this time, but it's been really, the people have been engaged, which is really quite extraordinary.
I did do one, but my group tend to not write anything. They watch. I guess that's because it's a watch party.
Right. A kibitz party. You should have a kibitz party.
And I think one of the interesting things also in terms of the watch party has been people throwing thoughts out that I've actually been jumping on for the discussion. So I think that makes the
writers. You come to this with writers.
It's funny. A lot of people. I mean, we've had. I don't want to name names, but there have been a couple of pretty well-known correspondents from the networks that have joined us, and a couple of executives from the networks that have joined us. They've dipped in and out a couple of times, and I was really impressed by some of those names that I saw pop up. And yes, some of them are writers.
So we'll put up a super on the screen for the TechCrunch version of the show when we edit in the next day or so. But Keith, can you point? I want to point people at the GGX stream so that they can, if they want to post articles or something, they can do so.
Yeah. So
That-
yeah. So we have we use the app Telegram to create what you could think of as a back channel for the show. So on Telegram, if you go to and it's a URL, it's t.me, so that's easy to remember, t.me/ggx chat. GGX chat is where you can add stuff for us to look at. You can also do live comments during a show there if you want that we can see. So it's t.me/ggx chat.
Okay, and last thoughts for you, Keith?
I'm ready for it to be over as well, which is hashtag not galvanized. And I suspect it is already over, and now it's just a waiting game.
I think you meant that it's electroplated.
I don't get that.
It's not
But-
galvanized.
You get that I don't get it, is what I'm saying. Dennis.
Okay.
I think the story for the next 32 days is not going to be the election. It's going to be Trump and his health. There's an article on the front page of the Washington Post right now that echoes what I was saying in the show today. Let me just read you a couple of pieces, small ones. Human immune systems which battle the virus become less effective as we grow older, even as the overall COVID-19 death rate in the US has declined during the 8 months of the pandemic. Nearly 80% of fatalities occur among people 65 and older. Older men die more frequently than older women. Age is very clearly the strongest predictor of not doing well with the virus, a doctor said. And Trump's comorbidity includes being overweight at 244 pounds and having high blood pressure and high cholesterol. This is a very serious situation. I don't think you're going to see Trump back on the campaign trail, even by Zoom. This is going to now fall on the shoulders of Mike Pence. The Pence-Harris debate is going to be big.
Will it happen?
It'll be. I suspect it'll be by Zoom. It won't be face to face.
Michael Markman.
Well, I agree that Trump's health is going to be the story. They're certainly going to hope for a miracle cure that they can tout. I think we've talked about that earlier. But it is a serious illness. And as Dennis says, at his age, it's a very serious illness. So far, the White House has not been very transparent about what's going on, but people are going to keep digging at it. And that's going to consume a lot of focus and a lot of attention. It's going to be the big elephant in the room.
This took all the air out of the story.
Yeah, I think the willful ignorance is what is being underlined here. And as a strategy, I think it won't work. And I think that the American people are ready for somebody that they can trust more than him.
Absolutely. I think one of the, although Trump's health is the center of it, the periphery is filled with lots of stories that are not good for him, such as his mismanagement of the virus, such as his proclamation of lie after lie after lie, and inability to gain anyone's trust outside of his core. Even his core knows that he's lying, but they enjoy the fact that he's lying. So the dynamics of the race, I think, are set.
Yep.
You just have to get through it.
I think it's interesting, by the way, that at one point during the day, the market was down some 600 points. Or that was the Dow anyway, was down some 6. And I think that he targets the Dow when he says the market. I don't know for sure, but some combination of the Dow and the NASDAQ. And the market closed at only 41 points. It's interesting that it caught back up by that much at the end of this day.
Yeah, I think the decoupling of the market from, is Trump good on the economy? If that happens, which I think it is beginning to look, for the next 30 days, if this market vacillates, not based on what the likelihood of Trump being elected is, but rather on what's the likelihood for the market given Biden being elected. I think that's becoming the dynamic. I think that's an area where Trump has strength, which he may start to decline.
The market,
But we've all said it. We've all said so many times, though, to remember that the market is not the economy.
the market's really interesting right now. Maybe next week we can talk a bit about it, but the market is more than one market. There's at least two markets, which is COVID winners and COVID losers. Within COVID winners, there's tech and everything else. Retail is obviously a big winner, in food-based retail anyway, and digital retail are big winners. But if you look at what's going on with tech, this week alone, Asana and what's its name, the government company beginning with P.
Yeah, the one that did the testing of the IEDs.
Palantir.
Yeah, Palantir.
Palantir did direct listings last week. There were IPOs with Snowflake and Sumo Logic, and there's a coming SPAC with Opendoor that Chamath Palihapitiya is involved in. The market's fascinating from a Silicon Valley point of view. There's a lot going on.
Worth talking about, I think, absolutely.
Okay, I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gilmore, for her incredible work. If you look at if you've been watching in live, it's not the full range of what it is that Tina's doing. If you look at the TechCrunch version, you'll see an enhanced version of cutaways and various other kinds of things that we can't tease out of Zoom in real time. So she's doing a fantastic job, as are all of you guys. I want to thank.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dennis Pombriant.
Thanks.
I want to thank Frank Radis,
Thank you.
Keith Tier,
Thank you all.
and Michael Markman.
Thank you all.
Brett Leary, of course, is midst of his other shows. He's got a number of them.
A million.
And, this whole live broadcasting over the Stream network, if you will, I think has a chance now of really having an impact on this election, if only to keep the relative balance of it frozen at the level that it is. So I'm moderately, as a partisan for Biden, I'm moderately optimistic. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Night, night.
Bring your cats next time.
I don't know what happened. I got the noisy dog instead.
I'm gonna unstream. Okay.
You know what, Frank?